Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone. I'm Daniela Saioni. I am the founder of the Director Whisper training program. I've been training script supervisors for 25 years, and I have 3 of my current alumni, and we've invited Italy to the table, so I'm so proud and happy to introduce you also to Carlotta. The reason I really wanted Italy at the table is because their guild, AIARSE, did I say that right? AIARSE? AIARSE.
Yes, yeah.
Has
yes.
AIARSE, because they recently added the script assistant position to their roster, which is amazing because we're trying really, really hard in North America. Multiple AIARSE locals are trying to expand the department to a 3-person department, actually. And I know you've also a bunch of you have also worked as script trainees, but right now we have script supervisor. We're trying to get script supervisor, script assistant, and script trainee. And I used to have, and I've had script assistants in other countries, so I knew it was already a thing in other countries, but in Canada, and Audrey works in Canada, so she knows it's really a Quebec thing more than anything, and we just want it to be a universal thing. So I thought this would be a wonderful time to have a panel to talk about how the role has been used in different countries as we're trying to define it in North America as well. It would be great to hear about the history and how you guys did it. And of course, I reached out to my students first because I sort of know you guys, even though I haven't maybe talked to you face to face, because we talk, online. Yeah, so actually, first I'd love for you guys to introduce yourself briefly. Let's start with Audrey.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm from Montreal in Quebec, the French part of Canada, and I've been an assistant script supervisor for 3 years now. I've worked mostly on local TV shows, and yeah, now I'm switching to script supervising this year.
Yes, congratulations. Yes, that's the goal, right? Katja.
Hi, I'm Katja. I'm a Dane living in New Zealand, and I've been a script supervisor since 2018. And only, I got the opportunity, and I pushed for it as well, to become this assistant script supervisor on Lord of the Rings. And that's the only assistant job I've done, but it was an amazing experience. And as someone who very quickly got thrown into the deep end of script supervising, this was an amazing opportunity to kind of step back a little bit and observe other script supervisors, how they do their work, and learn more about the job, and which I can definitely see how it should be a stepping stone in becoming a script supervisor, how you go through the assistant script supervisor position, because you learn so much when you get the possibility of assisting someone for a longer time.
Wonderful.
So, yes.
I'm so glad you're able to join us, believe me. Especially since New Zealand, at least last year, was exploding with work. And I just think it's going to keep on going, right? It's going to be a place where you'll really need it. Ada is in the busiest production center in the world, I think. I have students in 14 countries, and Ada's in the UK, and the UK was exploding with work. Ada, introduce yourself.
Hi. Hi, I'm Ada. I'm Polish. I have been living in the UK since 2014, and I've only just joined the industry in 2019. I did 2 years in production, and then I moved to continuity. After taking Daniela's course, I've done a few days here and there on some odd days on second units or some reshoots or whatever for HETV dramas here, script and dramas in the UK. And then I am currently in my first full-time continuity job as a script supervisor trainee for a Disney Plus HETV series, 8-part series, which is very busy and crazy stuff is going on, but I love it.
I'm glad. Ada's always insanely busy, so I'm so glad you were able to take the time to join us. And Carlotta.
Okay. First of all, I'm quite shy, but thanks for inviting me, Daniela, to join us on this today. My name is Carlotta. I'm from Italy, in particular Rome, because I wanted to move to Rome to start to work in professional world, because I was born in Tuscany, but Tuscany is the kind of the city or the country of cinema or TV show. I continuity supervisor since 2016. I start on my own because I like cinema and I study script writer and this kind of work in the past. I think also in the present, I think that is the way that I can stay in the set and make someone love. Sorry for my English, my pronunciation.
Se vuoi parlare in italiano va bene per me.
In English, other English girl, sorry.
No problem. Se vuoi parlare in italiano va molto bene per me. I was telling Carlotta that I can try to translate. I can understand Italian. I speak it a bit less, but I'm happy to translate anytime. I'll do my best. You can laugh at me. Io ho una casa in Italia. I live in Capoliveri. Just a little.
You write me. Yes. It's very similar because I'm in Tuscany. So.
Yes. Great. Now everyone's going to have different knowledge based on. Let's start with Audrey. Do you know the history of the position in Quebec and how, just basically, is there a script assistant and a script trainee in practice? And can you tell us as much as you know about how the position is used, how often the position is used in Quebec?
Yes, well, when I got your questions, I reached out to script supervisors from my union to know a little bit more, because I'm pretty recent. I've only been doing it for 3 years, but the position is an official one in our union. And it has been for between 10 and 15 years. So nice. It's pretty established. Today, there isn't a lot of them. We don't use them a lot. It's mostly on TV shows where the rhythm is pretty fast. And we shoot multiple episodes at a time. So sometimes we can have 8 to 12 episodes even in one day. So when we have this kind of filming, then we ask for an assistant when there are multiple cameras of them, or sometimes even I got to work on a production for a shorter amount of time, like maybe a few days, when they have a lot of camera, especially for that day, or when there are a lot of actors and a lot of coverage to do at the same time, so I can give a hand when that's needed. And that's mostly when we have an assistant. There aren't a lot of us in the union. I looked it up. We're about 5 or 6 that are not script supervisors yet in Montreal.
And do they have stagiaires? Do they have trainees as well?
We don't have official trainees. In order to become assistant script supervisor, we're supposed to shadow some script supervisors. So we get to go on set and watch the script supervisor work, but only observe, not working, and not getting paid, of course.
For those, but then once you're in the union as a script supervisor, you get paid.
Then we become assistants, which which is a position, and then we get to move on to script supervisors. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, Katja.
It's not an established position in New Zealand. I know from senior script supervisors that it is something they try to push for every time there's a big, especially American job that comes into town, because the local productions, they really can't afford it. And if you train on a local production, you never get paid. It's but with the big jobs, that's sometimes it's part of the deal with the New Zealand government for the benefits they get, that they have to take a trainee on. And sometimes that's converted into an assistant, depending on what the job needs. But it's not been something that's happened very often. It is something that some script supervisors, like you mentioned, some want to push for, and others are quite happy working alone. So it is, it depends on the individual script supervisors down here if they really want assistance or not.
Okay, so it's interesting because in Canada we have a history. The history of our cinema started with British history, and that's why I think the position has always been on the books in Canada, but it has really only been used in French Canada, as far as I know. If you look on my YouTube channel, there's an interview I did with Michaela Kim, who I was able to bring on as a script assistant because we already had the position on the books and we had no script supervisors available. But in her case, we were transitioning her from assistant to script in the same show. At ADA, UK has a long history of this position, from my understanding. Do you want to speak to that? I know you've helped, even though you're still a script trainee, you have worked with many script assistants. Feel free to let us know as much as you can about the UK system.
I just feel so unprepared for this right now, but I've reached out to some more experienced continuity just heroes that I've worked with before, and for sure I can tell that definitely again, like 15-20 years ago, that was already a thing. And the assistant's position is officially sort of part of the back to rate card. So we as continuity people are part of camera departments, or a camera branch of the back to, which is our union. But keep in mind, our union isn't like nothing like the American or Canadian unions. It is sort of, I would say, it is advice that we get paid was in the negotiated rate card, obviously, but it's, you know, it depends on the size of the budget and production. If they need assistance, if they have any budget for a trainee or for assistant. I don't think that there ever really was, from what I've learned from other people, obviously, there really wasn't a situation where they would have both a trainee and an assistant on a job. So that would usually be one or the other. And there are other things like, yeah.
I feel like I've talked to students who have been on teams of three.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's great. I mean, I hope that happens more, because definitely is needed. And like you said, it's so busy here that we need people with skills and some experience. So the more people get trained, the better. Yeah. But so far from my experience, it is usually one or the other.
One or the other.
And with trainees also, now there's so many programs like Screen Skills, which is this government funded body where productions pay into this into their budget, and then they get a trainee to train on the job in almost every department. So that's something that's happening as well. But now, because of the number of productions, the amount of work that's needed, and for all of these HETV shows and film productions, which are shot on multiple cameras every day and for 5, 6, 7, 8 months, it is very much needed to have an assistant, I think, from what I've heard at least, and from what I've observed.
Because you were saying, because Ada has also worked on you worked on The Crown and very big shows where you interacted with a script assistant when there was no trainee, but there was a full-time assistant. So yeah, I guess I wondered, so you answered part of my question. So you haven't worked in a 3-person team yet, like with all the full 3 in the department, but when you saw the script assistant working, was it full-time?
Yeah, so the first sort of taste of what the department is for me was on The Crown. I was lucky enough to work with an amazing production team who allowed me to just kind of peek, on set and see what's happening there with Karen and Matt, who were the continuity department on that show. And there were some days where they would either have a splinter or they would have some last minute situation where they would have another day, and then it got to a point where actually they requested me to be present as a trainee to shadow or support the assistant who was then taking over the script supervisor role for the day. So so I would things even like just getting the camera details for her, and we have 2 or 3 cameras running at once on shows like this, so that was the first thing. Then I would say, I think maybe the main thing I would start with is just keeping your script supervisor alive. Just make sure they have coffee, they have time to go to the bathroom, they have the lunch, so all of these like tiny things, and then it's already a huge help. So that was like just the basic stuff that I was doing in the beginning, and then just observing what kind of notes she's taking and what documents she's producing every day, the DPR, all of that stuff. So
and so it would be on television. And what I'm understanding from other students as well in the UK is that you guys mostly use it in television. Although I have had students work as trainees on big features there, but in television, it sounds like it's more regular, and there's usually either an assistant or a trainee, right?
I would say probably it is true to an extent, because again, the only features that I've worked were just like massive. This somehow just happened. I don't honestly know how, but I was lucky enough to work on them like massive budget productions, which always also had a trainee or an assistant.
Oh, great! So, that's great to hear.
Movies and HETV, but I think just because maybe HETV is so, I don't know, so busy. I mean, it's always busy with movies as well. But there's so many, just the crazy number of productions, of TV productions that are coming to the UK now. I would say that it all depends on the budget. So everything with a solid budget will always have something set aside for an assistant or for a trainee.
Oh, that's great to hear. Carlotta, as I understand, this is the first year that AIARSE had the position. Do you know about the history of it? Can you speak to how long Italy's been using script assistant?
You prefer in Italy or in English?
Whatever you prefer, and I can translate if you speak Italian. It's okay.
Sorry guys, but I prefer Italy. Sorry.
Sì, va bene.
La storia è, diciamo, che non c'è l'AIARSE, cioè Associazione Italiana Aiuti Regia e Segretaria di Edizione, ha adesso, diciamo, inoltrato la figura del planner e la figura anche dell'assistente script all'interno dell'associazione, perché anche il planner è una figura che sta nascendo praticamente adesso e quindi l'associazione ne vuole, diciamo, prendere con sé, visto che è anche considerata regia. E l'assistente
il planner
almeno per quanto concerne l'Italia, il planner è quella figura che si intrappone tra il primo aiuto e la Script Supervisor, e praticamente si segna le scene che mancano, che quelle che sono state fatte, quelle che sono state posticipate, quelle che vengono pubblicate.
Noi lo facciamo la segretaria di edizione lo facciamo. So, okay, I'm just going to translate and then we'll continue.
Yeah.
So Carlotta is saying that AIARSE just added, so AIARSE is like an association with Aiuto Registi, which is assistant directors, and script supervisors, and they just added the assistant script position and the planner position. And she's saying that the planner role, I said, what is that? Because I assumed it was production coordinator, but no, it is a role where it's kind of that role, but she was saying that they keep track of any shots and scenes that are still owing, and what we got in North America, the script supervisor would do that. Okay, continua.
Sì, ma in realtà succede anche qua, è una figura che si sta formando, ma io già l'anno scorso non l'avevo, io ho fatto un po' di serie TV, io già l'anno scorso questa figura non l'avevo nel comparto di regia, sicché anche capire il limite mio, il limite suo è ancora un po', almeno per l'esperienza mia, io ho solo 2 anni in produzioni grosse, quindi non posso parlare per tutte. Però è già lì capire il limite di un ruolo nuovo, quello che hai tu consolidato perché hai imparato così, è strano, perché in realtà è un mestiere che è in continua evoluzione.
Oh, great. So she's, io tradusco un po'. So she's saying that the both jobs of the planner and the assistant script supervisor are still in evolution. So it's hard to know where her job ends and that person's job begins, as it's still in evolution. Okay, continua.
E oltre al planner, come appunto è la questione, insomma, l'argomento di questa roundtable, l'assistente script esiste da tanti anni, cioè molte script supervisor considerate senior si avvalgono di una persona con meno esperienza che vuole fare esperienza, oppure è già dal 2020 che ci sono, diciamo, figure ibride, perché ci sono assistenti script che non sono le prime armi, però proprio perché il lavoro sta aumentando, le richieste di montaggio sono sempre più diciamo,
rapido,
vicinissime alla fase di ripresa, ci si deve avvalere di 2 teste invece che solo una, con tutto rispetto per per la Script Supervisor capa, però c'è sempre più necessità di lavorare in due, e quindi questo perché l'abbiamo cercato di metterlo nell'associazione. Prego.
Great. Oh, great, great, great. She was saying that actually the position has existed for many years. It's just that now it's an official one in the association. And the reason it has existed, there have been senior script supervisors in Italy who requested who would just request an assistant if there was a lot. But because of the evolution of how we shoot now, it's been getting faster and faster, and it's become a necessity. By the way, I agree. Sono completamente I'm completely in agreement, because this is what I am finding in Canada, especially in Toronto. We are a major production center, and there is an onslaught of work, an onslaught of cameras. La maggior parte lavorano in TV o in cinema?
No, anche nel cinema. Voglio premettere però che questa è una volontà che si vuole diciamo, avere. Cioè, noi cerchiamo in associazione intanto di introdurla. Questa figura nel contratto nazionale, per esempio, non c'è. Quindi tutte le volte che si va a un colloquio si determina anche semplicemente una paga o quante ore deve stare sul set con la capa, Script Supervisor, ancora non è legittimata la figura. Esiste, ma speriamo col nuovo contratto che viene rinnovato a breve, si spera, si riuscirà a legittimare anche questa figura, che è molto utile. E è anche molto utile la formazione, come diceva prima Ada, perché più... Prego.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna because perché hai anche lavorato come un stagioniera, si dice stagioniera? Because you worked as
allora, sì, ho lavorato inizialmente, la mia prima esperienza professionale è stato uno stage che la mia regione, appunto, la Toscana, che non è famosa per il cinema, ha fatto uno stage con il fiorfiore dei reparti, perché avevo un dio alla fotografia, una persona eccelsa alla musica, e come reparto edizione mi sono trovata bene con Giulia Contino, che in Italia è la Script Supervisor di tanti registi di talento, quindi era anche piacevole per me apprendere da lei il mestiere.
Great.
E sì, ho fatto in quell'occasione la stagista e più recentemente l'assistente, ma in qualità di quello che dicevo prima, di questa figura che, se non c'è la capa, fa appunto la splinter unit, come si diceva, perché una figura che c'è sempre fin dall'inizio è più facile coinvolgerla poi in una splinter unit che magari di colpo prendere un elemento, succede, però si tende con la lunga serialità almeno si sta cercando di inserire due figure invece che una sola, proprio perché il lavoro è di più. Scusa per la traduzione.
It's okay. So she was saying that they're trying to really legitimize the position. It's been there on an informal level, but people have needed it. Even the trainee position. One more question. Eri pagata come stage o era volontiere?
Allora, nel caso della regione toscana mi hanno pagato loro, perché era proprio una cosa della regione toscana, penso anche della Toscana Film Commission, eccetera. Per quanto riguarda quest'ultimo lavoro, sì, era assolutamente pagato, contributi, sì, era proprio un lavoro a tutti gli effetti, sì.
Great. She was saying that when she was a trainee, the province of Tuscany actually paid her directly. And this is a great tip for actually script supervisors around the world, especially in regions that are looking to improve and upgrade and train their local crew. They will often provide training. That's what the Screen Skills program in North Ireland and the UK is about. I have had another alumna, Orla, in North Ireland, also get paid on the job as through Screen Skills. So I know that exists. Northern Ontario in Canada has money. There's all kinds of ways. If the job doesn't exist, but there is a desire to train, that you can try to access that money from your local film commission, your local film, whichever body. Hopefully most of you are in an area where there's a body that's interested in developing the film business, and then you would network. And she worked with Giulia Contini, right?
Giulia Contino è un esempio, poi ho seguito Cinzia Rocco ultimamente, sono tutte e due con tanti anni di esperienza alle spalle, quindi è stato anche bello valutare due metodi di lavoro a distanza degli anni, perché una era nel 2016, dal 2016 adesso ho avuto il mio bagaglio di esperienze anche personali come caporeparto, e recentemente quindi riaffrontarmi un'altra volta con un altro metodo di lavoro con Cinzia Rocco è stata ancora un premio che proprio cioè, mi sono stata contentissima.
So she's gotten to work with some.
Mai di imparare.
See. So even though she was a full-fledged script supervisor, even on some shows, she would go back and assist some of these great, super experienced script supervisors in Italy. Audrey, okay, so I want to talk about your specific experience, because everyone is sort of approaches the role a little bit differently. Is it very delineated, and how did you share the work with the script supervisor when you were an assistant?
From my experience, there's not a specific job description. It changed from a show to another, from a script supervisor to another. I did completely different things, and I think that's what's really great about being an assistant, because I got to do a little bit of everything. So I did on some shows I did the reports for editing, the production reports. On other shows I would take the continuity pictures and then make sure that costume, hair and makeup is good, and then I would be on book for the lines, make sure that everyone says all the words, updating the script supervisor's documents, like the breakdowns when we get revisions or when we seeing what's shot and what's not shot. So, and then I also worked with the script supervisor who was all paper, so I would file and prepare pages for the next days, file our reports, and just preparing everything. So really, I think I did almost everything as an assistant. Almost.
That's great, because when I had Michaela, if for those who saw my interview with Michaela, we decided how we were going to do it, but I wasn't sure what the best practices were. So it sounds like it's, this is a dream, by the way, for any script supervisor who has not worked with an assistant. It was a dream for me to be able to go to the bathroom. It was a dream for me to have a second set of eyes on 3 cameras. I went home, I would say half less tired, like much more energy conservation. Katja, how about you? You had the one job, but it was a huge job. How did you divide the work?
Well, there were 3 different script supervisors I was assisting at one point, because when I started it was just block 1, and I was just assisting the first script supervisor. And there I did, you could say, all the paperwork behind. I was staying with sound, where she was up with the director, and she would come between setups and then give notes to the individual takes and look over if she was happy with the notes I was taking. It's very much collaboration, or you need to be very close in touch with the script supervisor. So there's a lot of chemistry as well. I would say I do understand if script supervisors want to interview who they want for assistant, because it is such a close-knitted job, and you really need to depend on each other or the script supervisor. And if you've been in a position where you're the only one and all of a sudden you have to give something away, I think that's a big exercise for people who've been doing it alone for a long time, to trust other people. But and then when we had 2 main units and a second unit shooting, and I was jumping between whoever needed it, it wasn't on the day that I jumped. It was usually we looked ahead and looked on the call sheets and who had the most complicated setups or scenes, that I would go and join them. Or if we knew that, if we tried to learn from the first AD if they were planning to have breakaway cameras or splinters, because I would then always follow that camera. It was, most of the time it was quite official, but a lot of times they would also just have a camera that broke away. So it was playing it by ear. But one of the 3 script supervisors had worked in England, where she'd had assistants. So she very much knew what she wanted from me. And for her, the main objective, like you say, Daniela, was to be able at the end of the day to focus on the next day and not having to finish the present day, so that she could go away, continue discussions with director and first AD about the following day, and leave me to finish up the paperwork. And she could go home and rest and know that I was taking care of finishing that day, whereas she was already on to the next day. That was probably also, I know, one what's the best advice for why to get one. And it's for her, it was very much about being present with the director and being able to assist the director as much as possible. And you could say I was doing the part of our job which is for the editor. Mm-hmm. So the paperwork job was on the assistant, whereas the script supervisor was the assistant for the director as much as possible. And it was also just gathering information between the units and what was happening, and especially if all of a sudden pickup shots were thrown at us on second unit from the main units. So it was just information gathering. That was a lot of it.
That sounds intense, even with 2 units, and it depending on how much communication I can have with my second unit script supervisor, that would be a dream to have an assistant, go back and forth. It's funny because when I was with Michaela this summer and I was training her, right? So I had her step more into the role of working with the director, and I did the notes, and sometimes I would step in, if I needed to, but it was more, I wanted her to feel confident on her feet, which she was but I just wanted to make sure. So I didn't have her deal with the notes at all, but that would be a dream to have her deal with the notes. I didn't even let her do that, but I let her take all the photos. I mean, she's on Scripty. I'm digital, but I'm not on Scripty. So just as a way of part of her training and for herself, she just kept redoing my notes in Scripty, which I think is funny. I mean, it's great. It's great. Okay, that's great. Wonderful. I didn't even think of that multi-unit shooting, which we have a lot of in Toronto. We also have additional script supervisors, which I know you've done, Carlotta, and I think some of you have done already, where there's 2 script supervisors, but they're, they might be on another unit, or they might be both on main unit because it's a very complex day or whatever. Ada, how specifically have you seen the roles delineated in London?
So again, I agree 100% with Katia, and I think it's all to do with how much the script supervisor is willing to kind of offload of their own shoulders, which is, as you all know, it's a massive job and a massive task. So I think it all depends on the person who you work that you work with. But for example, at the moment on this TV drama, I'm a trainee, so I shouldn't really have any sort of like actual responsibilities, anything like to important. No, I mean it's all important, but I'm currently taking the screenshots, so I'm in charge of the stills. I'm making sure that all of after every setup, we get all of them selected, uploaded to our box, because our director really likes to just go through them at the end of the day. So I'm making sure that they're all there by the time she gets to her car, like on the way to home or whatever she's saying. And I'm doing, of course, the camera details for every slide and all of that. But also, it also is because we don't have the actual full second unit, but we've had a few double banking days. So for those, we'll have another daily script supervisor brought in, and then I would go with them usually, because I have all of the stills for like matching shots, because we would do only inserts or something like this. So for this whole unit, we would do that, and then I would be there with my iPad, with my notes, with everything we've done so far, so she can just take care of the notes and focus on the monitor and all that stuff, and then I'll be running around and just checking with standby art and the props and that everything is in place, and it's super fun. I really love that part of the job, and I guess I can't imagine how one person could do that. So it's like, if you are wherever in the world you are, just always request a trainee, or at least someone to shadow, because this is such, I mean, that's from what I'm hearing at least, such a huge help to just, like Daniela, have another, pair of eyes. If there's a crowd heavy day, I would also keep an eye on the background with the Fed AD, so working with them a lot. And yeah, but then for assistants, again, I think it's you get to, like on other shows that I work with, the assistant would, for example, type up the notes, because the continuity person, the main script supervisor, was pen and paper, for example. So she would be digitally lining the scripts or doing the notes and then putting them all together for edit. So it's all, I think it all depends. It all depends on what they are willing to kind of give you to do.
Okay, so it can be a bit fluid there. It's interesting that a lot of times you guys are actually doing notes. It depends on the script supervisor. It's true. You know, I used to, by the way, have trainees on every show I did until 2001, every single show. I would love it because it was a way of, I love, you know, you guys know I love teaching and I love training, but I found that it helped me focus when I explained to my trainee what I was looking at in the scene. I would remember to look at that in the scene. So it was very good for me to focus. And obviously I've trained some of the best script supervisors in Toronto, like some of them, and we have many. We have a great roster of script supervisors in Canada as a whole, but in Toronto, it's ridiculous. So I was able in those years to really train some top-notch people, some of which became directors by now. But after 2001, it's been very hard for us to get shadows on set, which is another reason. And of course, after 2001, the workload has increased by a crazy amount. So it's now, you know, it behooves us to, and by the way, it's like Ada alluded to before, when you're a trainee in Canada, at least in most union cities, you can't actually do any work. You're not really allowed to do any work unless you're on set in an official position, which would be script assistant. We do have script assistant on the books. So when I had a script assistant, which was when I worked in India, I had a script assistant. He was official, he was paid. When I was in Montreal, I shared the director's assistant and he was also my script assistant, Charles Jaudoin, but he was unofficially my script assistant. I was training him because he was fluently bilingual and the director was French. He was from France. So he was able to help me with the language as well. And he would help me, I troubleshoot things on a continuity level. But sorry, Carlotta. Yeah. So it is, I think, imperative that we get paid script assistants and paid trainees if we expand to a 3-person department, because up until, for most of the years that I had assistants, they were unpaid. They were only allowed to watch. I had 6 trainees on a mini series called Path to 9/11. One was my own. She was paid through a government program here, and 5 the director brought with him from Hawaii, and he asked me to train them all, which was fine. It was a very hectic show, but like they weren't paid. Those 5 weren't paid. So it's it makes me, or one of my pet peeves is that as a department, we do such a big job, but we're expected to train for free. And that's one of the things I would love to end right now. We have, there's money and we have always been such a 1-person female, or like, listen, half my students are men. I'm not saying that we're a female department, but historically we have been. And so we get, thought of last. So this is why I'm very, very militant about this idea that we have the respect of having a paid assistant. Carlotta, how did you divide the work when you were a script assistant?
Ci tengo a precisare una cosa con la somma di quello che ho ascoltato. In Italia sì, c'è la figura della segretaria di edizione che inizia ad approcciarsi al lavoro. Non viene pagata, anzi è diciamo, provenendo dalle scuole, è l'università o l'accademia chi per sé, chi per lui, che dà l'assicurazione a questa persona e non è certo la casa di produzione. Quindi se non si ha un'università alle spalle o un'accademia, difficilmente si entra, diciamo, nel livello di stagista segretaria di edizione, che è diverso dall'assistente. Certo, sì, le cose che si fanno sono le stesse, però anche a livello, diciamo, di collocamento è diversa come situazione.
Okay, so she was just saying if you're a trainee, you're usually not paid, or you're paid by a program or by your school, but you're not paid by production. So that's the same. I think that I understood that. And even though you might be doing some of the same things that a script assistant is doing, come ti dividi il lavoro con la segretaria di edizione? Come assistente?
Allora, diciamo che ho avuto la fortuna di fare tutti e 3 tipi di livello, se vogliamo. La stagista più o meno fa tutto quello che diceva Audrey, niente più, niente meno. E anche perché deve imparare, magari non lo invia a fine giornata, però gli serve per prendere la mano anche sui tempi e soprattutto su mantenere il sangue freddo, nel ricordarsi tutto, nell'appuntarsi tutto. Però è più un livello di se c'è, non c'è, è uguale. L'assistente invece, se non c'è, dal fatto che ci si dividono proprio i ruoli, chi fa una cosa l'altra non la sta facendo, quindi a maggior ragione se non si abitua a lavorare in 2 e viene a mancare un elemento, si sente, spero, si senta la mancanza, almeno mi è sembrato che si senta la mancanza, anche perché, come dicevo prima, l'assistente che intendiamo noi come AIARSE è sì la figura che sta apprendendo, ma è anche una collega con lo stesso tipo di esperienza che può dividere la mole di lavoro, come è successo a me. Se intanto...
Okay. So she was saying sometimes there's a trainee and sometimes there isn't. And and even though the trainee is expected to sort of take on, all the role, a little bit of everything, because they're learning, they're doing it from a learning point of view. But when there's no script assistant, it's like a missing piece, because the script assistant is really backing up the script supervisor. And actually they can interchange roles pretty easily. There's no non c'è una l'altro mese AIARSE ha scritto un
comunicato.
Sì, e hanno deciso dove la linea, dove comincia la segretaria di edizione e dove finisce l'assistente?
Sì, allora non come AIARSE, proprio come collocamento di tutti i livelli. Mi sembra che l'assistente sia al terzo, e da quanto ho capito, secondo l'ultima riunione, la segretaria di edizione vera e propria dovrebbe essere settima, però ho i dati non molto certi sulla...
Che vuol dire settima?
Da 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sono tutti i livelli, tutte le maestranze sono divise in livelli.
Oh, okay. In Italy, they give them the levels of job and number, and the script supervisor is a level 7. Qui siamo tutti capo dipartimento. So script supervisors are heads of department here. Non lì?
Diciamo che è una questione un po' delicata, perché ci sono di pensiero. Io parlo per me, non parlo per l'Italia. Per quanto riguarda, mi farebbe piacere che il reparto regia sia considerato in toto e che non ci siano discrepanze, perché è vero che se manca di regia non si gira, però a mio parere anche se manca la segretaria di edizione non giriamo, quindi giriamo, ma giriamo con grosse difficoltà. Quindi per quanto riguarda me non è assolutamente l'AIARSE che parla.
Okay.
Per quanto riguarda me mi piacerebbe che ci sia un'equiparanza anche a livello appunto non solo della società, ma anche delle altre maestranze. Anche noi siamo caporeparto, pur essendo reparto regia.
So,
non è polemica, è per carità il mio pensiero.
Sì, okay, capito. She's saying she's not speaking for all of Italy, and she's not even speaking for AIARSE. She's speaking from her point of view that it would be good if there was that everybody was at the same level if they were head of department, and that the assistant had a role, a legislated role that was official, right? Did I understand correctly? Ho detto giusto?
Cioè, l'assistente è giusto che sia un attimino più indietro a livello...
She's saying the assistant is a little bit, of course.
No, io parlavo proprio della Script Supervisor, proprio come continuity, il caporeparto d'edizione.
She's saying that script supervisor, it's not the same as here where we're all equal. Well, even here that we're theoretically all equal, we don't get treated that way necessarily. We've been trying very hard to gain, build respect for the position. And I say there's many veterans and new script supervisors who have been working very hard, union and non-union, to raise the profile and the respect for script supervisors. It's a whole reason I teach the Director Whisperer training program. We are essential to the director's team, and I teach people how to do that. But yes, I agree with you. Yes, and we can't speak for our unions or our whole countries. You're representing Italy today, but but I get it. And you're right. It's very controversial. There's script supervisors who don't want assistants. There's unions who don't even want script supervisors to be heads of department. There's so much controversy. Can't we all just get along? Okay. Does anyone, and you don't have to, but if you can speak to, I know it's going to be a question, the levels of compensation is there a standard of compensation? Let's start with Audrey. I mean, it's in your union, so you have a standard, at least a base, right?
Yes, and it's like every job in our union, we have a minimum defined for every job for different ranges of production according to the budget. Yes. And usually the assistant is about 2/3 of the script supervisor's salary. Yeah, so it's a much lower.
Much lower. In Toronto, there was a $5 difference.
No, it's a much bigger difference for us.
Okay, interesting. Katja, if you want to, you don't have, this is an optional question.
No, but for the first time this year, I believe there was an input to the guild down here about also the script supervisor rate depending on the size of the show. Mm-hmm. And they added the assistant script supervisor to this. I believe it's better to aim too high and then get something lower. So when I saw the numbers, I thought that was a lot more than I got. I got $2,000 per week on Lord of the Rings, which is equivalent to $1,300 per week. And I mean, it's not always easy just to compare salaries across borders because there's so many other things in that. But
like, how long are your days?
They would be a normal 10-hour day.
That's not normal here.
No. We did rolling lunches, so that was it was a 10-hour day, but we never do 12-hour days here. There might be a 10-hour plus 45, but always 10 hours. So, and it's less than it's probably around as a very, very low. Yeah.
Oh, I lost you there. This is very funny to me that the countries with 10-hour days have script assistants and the countries with 12 to 16-hour days tend to not have script assistants. In Audrey, I forgot to ask you, in Quebec, how long are your days?
It depends. In television, it's mostly 10 hours and then sometimes we go up to 12. But in movies, it's 12 and and then if you do the US films that come to Montreal, then it
then don't count on sleeping for 3 months or 6 months. Ada, are you able to speak to compensation? I've seen rates for script trainees and script assistants in pounds, so I don't know if those are average or
well, I think most productions that I've been involved with, they would always go with the vector rate. So depending on what the budget is, like per hour of HETV or for the whole movie, there's a whole rate card on Vector's website. I think the trainee isn't there, but there's a camera trainee in our branch, so at least you would be expected to get what the camera trainee is getting. I think assistants are there, and they are between I think 850 a week up to like 1,000, something like this for a week. Because
that's in pounds. Remember, we go 2.5. Sorry, I'm just doing the math to Canadian. That's not a bad salary at all. Okay, it's over 2,000 Canadian. Yeah.
But it's definitely a bigger difference than like $5, like you said, between assistants and actual.
And I misspoke. The actual book rate difference is something like $3. I was working above scale. My assistant was working at scale, so because it was her first time. So yes, it's a $3 difference in Toronto. But the problem is it's almost never used. It's used when a big American company comes to Toronto and they want to bring a script supervisor from another country. So in the past, on a couple of occasions, like one of my students was trained with one of my friends. She did The Long Kiss Goodnight, and she was I think she was Canadian at the time. She's American, but anyways, he got paid full time to be her script assistant in that case. But there have been other cases, a movie called Death to Smoochie, where they brought an American script supervisor and they paid a local script assistant wages. Sorry, did you want to say anything more about the wages?
No, just the hours, because again, like you said, it's to me, it's just insane that you guys don't have assistants in this crazy number of hours. We have, I think it's 11 plus hour for lunch, or 10.5 plus half hour for lunch, and I think it's 9 or something like this. So we usually do 11-ish hours on set with
amazing. Amazing. 10.5 hours and a script assistant and or trainee. We've got to take a lesson from the civilized countries of the world. And Carlotta, are you able to speak about, it's okay if you don't want to, about a compensation?
Intanto drammatizzo perché mi sembra che ci sia bisogno. cioè dipendesse da me, mi basta anche il fatto di fare questo mestiere, quindi a prescindere, per me è sempre una bellissima esperienza che sia assistente caporeparto. Questo per aprire una nota un po' dolente, perché il ruolo dell'assistente a volte non viene neanche pagato o viene pagato molto poco. E cosa ancora più antipatica, magari vengono ridotte le giornate in settimana, perché magari l'assistente serve per quelle date scene e non per altre, quindi non sia neanche un discorso di lavoro continuativo. Non sempre, non è la prassi, però come c'è la mia esperienza positiva, ce ne sono purtroppo altre in parallelo che non sono contenta avvengano, cioè da dirlo questa cosa. Prego.
Oh yeah, I was going to translate just that she was saying that it's different for everybody. There's not really, she's had some good experiences, but the real problem is that it's not a continuous position in the continuity department. They'll bring them in for specific days where they're needed, but they will pay. It used to be a position that wasn't paid, but generally you get paid, and different people have had different experiences with it. The value has been the training, of course. To be paid on the job to train is fantastic, but very often there's very competent people. This is something I want to ask you specifically about Italy. Un produttore mi ha detto che in Italia avete bravissime segretarie di edizione, ma non tutti parlano inglese e ci stanno questi film enormi dalle Stati Uniti. Ci sarebbe un ruolo buonissimo per una chi parla inglese, chi vuole imparare. Does that happen? Succede così?
Sì, non prendete il mio esempio come non sono tutte così, sanno l'inglese in Italia, sono io che
no, questo produttore mi ha detto
non è entrata dentro questa lingua, mi spiace.
No, questo produttore mi ha detto specificamente che abbiamo la problema di lingua per lavorare con, in questo dipartimento. È un gran produttore, by the way, ho lavorato per lui tanti anni fa.
Sicuramente sono di più le colleghe che lavorano con la Francia o con la Svizzera, forse cioè, metto le mani avanti. Sì, la lingua è, diciamo, anche un discorso, forse anche di mentalità, non lo so. Sì, okay. Ma non è la prima volta che lo sento. Anche perché alla fine il modo di lavorare, anche se la documentazione varia come impostazione di foglio, le cose sono quelle e il mestiere stupendo è lo stesso. Però sì, non è la prima volta che la lingua diventa uno scoglio, molto spesso si sente cercasi segretaria di edizione che sappia perfettamente l'inglese. È ovvio che non tutte si pongono al colloquio con uno sprint, però no, ci sono assolutamente tantissime colleghe molto brave che riescono anche in questo, sì.
Oh, okay. I was asking her if it's a thing, because a very big producer in Italy, I saw him here, he was doing a production financing talk about shooting in Italy, and he said on stage, we have some departments that are excellent, exceptional, and he said script supervisors, but we don't have as many who speak English. So I was asking her if the English language would be a great asset that is useful if you got, because when I was in India, my assistant spoke Hindi, I didn't speak Hindi, so it was perfect, right? This has been such a enlightening conversation, believe me. This is the first time I think in history that we've brought script assistants from different countries together. So let's talk about that. Let's combine the last two questions. I'll go around. How beneficial? Sì.
No, l'ultima cosa, e poi alla fine non ho detto, alla fine è più o meno la differenza sulle 500 euro tra un assistente
per settimana.
Per 45 ore di lavoro, sì, 5 giorni lavorativi. 45 ore.
So she said if both people work 45 hours a week, 5 days a week, my God, your hours are great, then there's a 500 euro difference between the positions. On a weekly basis. So it's very similar. So we'll just go around and ask how beneficial was the experience of being a script assistant to your training or to your networking? And was there anything not good about being a script assistant? And what would you say what have the script supervisors you've worked with said to you was the best thing about having you on board? Audrey?
I can start with the last part of your question, maybe. Yeah. I think that what the script supervisors really like with working with an assistant is that it just unloads them from a part of the job that they decide to delegate, and it's a lot less work at night and on weekends and offset, because we're there to do it during the day, most of the work. Well, so that's what I think. And also having someone they can fall back on for some things, like some things we would be two people watching some part of the job. So I think that was great. And for me, what I liked, the first thing I mentioned it before, but it was learning all the different tasks, but one at a, or just a few at a time. So it was a lot less stressful. And once I got to do all of it together all at once as a script supervisor, I was so used to doing most of it already that it was a lot less stressful and a lot easier for me. So that's, I think, the main thing. And then also I got to get really close with some really good script supervisors who became mentors for me. Every time I have a question when I'm on a project as a script supervisor, they're always there to answer my questions or give me some advice. And also when they can't take a job, then they give my name. And when producers hear my name from them, they have a lot more confidence that I can do the job well, or they trust me more, I think. So that's another good point for me.
That is fantastic. Yes, I can imagine that, having been a script assistant for 3 years, you walk into the role of script supervisor and you're magic. I am sure. I have no doubt about that. Katja?
I completely agree with Audrey about, just to start there at the end, when you say networking for jobs, that and the support you get from more. I did know a few script supervisors, but to get to know even more, that has been amazing. And for me, because the going so fast into the deep end of script supervising, then to have this opportunity to assist, where I felt I took a step back. I could just observe and absorb all this. It was invaluable. And because I had the opportunity to work closely with 3 different people who did things very differently, it was, I felt I learned even more of how you can approach the role, because I saw 3 different people, how they were doing it on the same job. So that's one thing. And the help is the most expressed. What was it? Yeah, that's the one where script supervisors have said that the reason for having an assistant is really how they get relieved. Like you said, just even going to the toilet, or but also in these COVID days, I stepped on. There was one day where somebody, they thought they might be sick and had to stay home and get a test. So I did that day, and that's also a reason for production. Why do you have a trainee or assistant on a job? It's because you have actually then somebody who can step in at very short notice. So that would be another argument in these times. But another thing was the people who like having assistants, then they would say that not being alone, to not have that responsibility or burden, but all of a sudden being a department of more than one, that has been an immense feeling to not be alone. And then I would say vice versa. It's what was my thoughts? It was what did I get out of it? Yes, I didn't have the responsibility also to because when you are the script supervisor, I feel there's a lot on your shoulders. And when I was the assistant, I didn't have that responsibility because I was not the one. So when I went home to bed at night, I didn't necessarily continue working in my head. I could just say, okay, tomorrow is a new day and we see what we go. So I think the switching between being an assistant and being a script supervisor is also something I wouldn't mind.
That's
fantastic. You can have the responsibility in some jobs, and then you can go off and still, when you're so new in the business as I am, and then keep learning.
Yes, yes. And it's funny because I have veterans in my program who have been doing it longer than I have. And I was like, why are you in my class? I mean, welcome. But they'd say, I am learning all my life and we never get a chance to, well, unless you've been a script assistant, we never get a chance to learn how other script supervisors do it. So I love that. It's a great mindset. Ada?
I think pretty much everything has been already said, but definitely what helped me is just observing what other people do, like what are the methods, what are their templates, what kind of workflow is like for them, and then you can, as like a proper grown-up script supervisor, pick, and choose what works for you best, and then create your own. Of course, because not everyone has to go Scripty or Scarlett or all of these programs that are available, software. And then, yeah, I think again, it's good to have another extra pair of eyes on many monitors that are going at once. It's good to have someone to send off to do the drone shots, for example, which I've been doing all last week, and stuff like this, and just and then this kind of might be mental health aspects to it, which is just knowing that you're not completely alone in this huge, massive task, and I think that helps a lot.
I love that, the mental health aspects. I'm so with you guys on that. It was a breath of fresh air for me to have an assistant again after 20 years. It was, and the fact that she was getting paid was even better. Carlotta, che t'hanno detto quando, what did they say to you that said, okay, you really helped me with this?
Allora, una cosa importante che sottolineava anche una mia collega che è all'ascolto, Lisa Castagna, non tutte le senior riescono ad avere un assistente. E purtroppo questa è una realtà che non riusciamo a scardinare, perché gli organizzatori spesso, anche se il lavoro è tanto, pensano che ce la facciamo da soli. Io ho avuto la fortuna però di riuscirci e di affiancare, dividendo le responsabilità, con Cinzia Rocco, in questa serie Boris, dove più o meno abbiamo 16 personaggi sempre in scena.
Wow!
Quindi fin da subito è stato chiaro che io ero l'assistente in maniera, diciamo, di presentazione, cioè mi presentava sempre come l'assistente, però poi di fatto a un certo punto io facevo le cose per il montaggio e lei supervisionava la continuità, cioè ci siamo proprio divise. Quindi alla fine del giorno io avevo le mie consegne, lei aveva le sue, anche per noi due, perché comunque ci scambiavamo i file. E è come essere la stessa persona però dividendosi il cervello in due, quindi per me è stato bellissimo imparare il suo metodo, magari dare qualcosina anche del mio, e poi una cosa che non ringrazierò sempre è mi ha fatto lavorare a Cinecittà, quindi ero contentissima. Sì, diciamo che è la divisione di responsabilità, perché come dicevo prima, anche Katia l'ha detto, anche il fatto che a volte le sceneggiature arrivano, cioè non diceva proprio questo, però il fatto che magari l'assistente si può staccare e preparare la giornata dopo, e intanto appunto la relativa senior può preparare la giornata. Questo è quello che avviene di solito con gli assistenti. Nel nostro caso invece è stata una cosa strana, perché eravamo tutte e due continuity, perché io pensavo al montaggio e a fare i report da dare al montatore, e lei invece si occupava della continuità, di parlare col regista, cioè ci siamo proprio scisse il lavoro, tant'è che quando ci hanno poi divise in prima e in seconda unità, per noi è stato il panico, perché è tanto che non facevo quella parte, lei era tanto che non faceva quella che facevo io, però sempre, è stato bello, è stata contenta.
Oh, good. So Carlotta was clarifying that not every Italian TV series does have an assistant on board, even if it's very hard. So it's not 100% that, but when she was on Boris, which was like a big show with 16 people in every scene sometimes, which, wow, that's intense. She divided the work with this. She was the assistant, but she was doing all the paperwork, all the work for editing. And the script supervisor was really on the actual continuity on the day. And she would prep the notes for the next day, like prepare if there was a script revision, she would. So that's how they divided the work. She said it was really wonderful to learn someone else's method. Okay, bravi. Okay, people are saying hello. I haven't. They've been writing questions in as we got. Ali in LA, hi Ali, and Julia, hi. Okay, and people and Jackie in New Zealand, Marin in the UK. Kat, for Ada, where would be the best place to reach out for assistant script supervision work in the UK? I'm personally following Facebook groups and reaching out where I can, but I'm not sure about where I could find more opportunities.
Okay, I think, well, honestly, this is the place. this, and then screen skills. I think this year is the first year when they have this. I mean, they have this massive program for trainees for all departments, and I think this is the first year after COVID when they came back with a trainee as well for continuity. So I think they open until I'm sure actually they're still open, but they were recruiting for this. So that's like one of the main things. There are so many opportunities for specific either production companies or for different kinds of, because in the UK we've got Wales, England, and Ireland, sorry, the Northern Ireland and Scotland. So there's so many jobs going on in Wales, in Scotland, for example. I think Outlander is a TV show, and every year they have this massive announcement. They're looking for trainees for all departments as well. So
and also it's funny because we have an international program, but I love that Ada will post jobs for the UK inside our program, inside our alumni group. I love that when people help each other in the different countries. Yep.
Add one more thing to that. If you are in any production, any department, always talk to your script supervisor. Just chat them up, and whenever they're not super crazy busy, because this is you are already on set and in a privileged position. You are in the business, so just kind of try to keep it in the way you want to end up. And that's how. Because
Ada was a production secretary and a runner, and like when you're in those jobs, it's a perfect opportunity to get. Virginia, Daniel, that's not the Virginia in my program, right? Because I was going to say you haven't gotten that part of my program. Anyway, she asked, what is a splinter? A splinter is when it's like a little smaller group of people who go off and shoot a shot, usually close by the set, and they don't necessarily bring a script supervisor with them. So if you have a trainee or an assistant, they can go with splinter and watch and tell you what they shot, and maybe even make notes if they're. I only let them make notes if they're paid. I think. Lisa Castagna. Unfortunately, it is not always like that. I work as script super. Oh, so you've never had an assistant since 2005, Lisa, in Italy, and I never have been an assistant of a senior. I teach continuity too for the Università di Venezia. I worked in Venezia in 1998 for Mestiere Cinema. I loved it there. I worked with Inti Carbone and Elvis Pasquale. I that's wonderful that you teach in Venice. Hi from Nova Scotia, although I'm from the UK. Oh, sorry, I want to see who that is. So really interesting to hear what is happening here. Oh, it's Andrea. Hi, Andrea. Julie, yes, it is. Okay, so I think that's all. There's more questions in the Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. 5:10. Okay, great. Marin, is it better to approach script supervisors for assistant work or production companies and producers if you're in the UK? So Ada, that would be for you.
Well, I think it depends. To be fair, I think it's always better to start with the continuity person. If you happen to know one, or if you know someone who knows someone, just always ask. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, as you know, it's most of it is word of mouth. So if you work
word of mouth
in a different department, and then they'll be like, yeah, I know this person, and she's not like, she's normal, like, and she's good, and she can learn things. Definitely, like, would recommend her. So I think that's like the easiest way.
I just have to say that because I got, I'll sometimes get calls about my students asking for a reference. Ada was going to do a daily on some show for some network I've never heard of. And they literally said to me in the email, is Ada good enough to work on our show? And I was
that was my first.
I was like, she's been on The Crown. I think she's okay to work on your show. It was very, very bizarre to ask for a reference for a daily. So that was Mary's question. And Michelle, not sure if you meant my question disappeared, but I asked to everyone, what's one thing you wish someone had told you, one piece of advice before you spent your first day as a script trainee or assistant? Audrey.
Oh, I don't know, because I already knew a lot of people doing the work, so I think I knew what I was getting into from the start.
That's a good way to put it. Knew what I was getting into. Katya?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because you started as a script supervisor.
Well, I didn't come from film. I come from a publishing background. So, and my intro into this world of getting behind the cameras was, I was the cultural advisor on a Danish-New Zealand production. And so for me, there's just so many things I don't know, whereas I can see people who come from a film school have a wider knowledge already. So, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Have a
It's
cup
okay.
of coffee. Have a cup of coffee with the script supervisor and get to know them and just find out what they need.
Yes, that's a great one. Thank you. As a script supervisor, Ada, one bit of advice. You're very good at hustling, Ada. Is that a advice you would give people?
Always hustle, yeah. So I always hustle. I would just say, like I just said, just have the time to chat with your have a coffee with your supervisor and chat about this before you can start. But also always be out of the eye lines of the actors. Even if you're not, if the shot is like if they're walking out of shots, hide, go behind the monitors, whatever. Like if you're down, just stay by the monitors. Do not go anywhere. I know that line.
That's great. And don't stand in the key light or the bounce light or any light. Carlotta, any piece of advice for the first timers?
È una cosa che mi è stata detta in realtà, quindi la volevo riutilizzare. Sembra di stare in guerra, ma non è così, quindi trova il modo di divertirti.
It seems like so she said someone said it to her and she's going to relay it. It seems like you're at war, but you're not. So find a way to have fun. That's great advice. That's great advice. We'll end with Carolyn's question. When you said there's an option to have assistants paid for by different associations or programs, is that just for trainees? Since assistant is technically in the union books, would the production not have to pay an official assistant? And is it on you to tell production about the possibility of? So Carolyn, great question. I don't know if you're Carolyn in our union, but if you are, I had to do it as a trainee position. There's a program by the Academy that pays people, it's not very much, but it's a few $100 a week to train. I had to tell production, I had to tell the union, they were not allowed to do any work because they're a trainee. So if they're assistant, they have to be paid for by production. Production could make the deal with the organization about how they, but yes, it has to be cleared through production and through the union as well. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to email everybody and love you and keep doing all the good work. And we're all going to keep asking for script assistants and keep rocking in your careers. I hope to see you in person one day.